Hamilton, Washington, a tiny hamlet on the low-lying north bank of the Skagit River, is an historic gem. Located about 80 miles north of Seattle, midway between Sedro-Woolley and Concrete, it is unique in one important way: flooding. Founded in 1891, Hamilton thrived on logging and mining. It boasted a population of 2,500 in its timber heyday. But that was long ago. It's been a soggy century for Hamilton. Devastating floods have enveloped this town at least 17 times. It makes one wonder, why would anyone want to live in the path of a raging river? Martin Hodgen is one who knows why. This is his home, and his father's home before him. It's a quiet place, one cafe, a tavern, the post office. 300 or so folks still live here. On the main street, people sit on the porch in the sunshine and talk about the old days, the good old days. The park is always full of kids, and horses trot freely down Maple Street on a sunny summer afternoon.
When we first came here, my uncle had a tavern over here, so we went into that first, that they lived in. So anyway, they talked my dad into coming out here, and he did. There was no work back there, none, and lots of logging going on here then. They found a house, so we moved down that, which is on the river.
The floods never stopped, but people stayed. Carol Bates is one of them. There are 5 generations of the Bates family here.
And we came from Gillette, Wyoming to Sedro-Woolley, and then we bought a mobile butcher truck and, did custom farm kill critters. And then we bought this store down here on the corner and made it a cut and wrap shop.
When we got married 60 years ago, then I bought 5 acres right here. And talk about I never did have no payments on it. The fellow that had the grocery store here, he says, "You want that house?" Well, I was getting married. Yeah, I do, but I ain't got no money. You really want it? Yeah. Okay. He said, I'll buy it for you. He did. When you get the money, pay me back. It was all in my name. It's not very often you can get a deal like that, so I had 5 acres and 1 horse then.
That everybody was friendly, and the houses were well kept. They were, most of them, old, but they were kept up. Yards were kept up. Everybody had a vegetable garden, and it was just nice.
I mean, it's got a hell of a history. And the old Slipper House is the town hall. And, because in the old days, logging, mining, coal mining, it was a boom town, and all the action was coming up and down the river.
Margaret Fleek, Burlington city planner, has worked for over 20 years with Hamilton trying to craft a solution. She knows it's complicated. Even so, she still thinks that moving is the best chance to giving Hamilton a future.
Wild and Scenic River came in 1976, so there's been no dredging. But really, they didn't need to dredge because commerce was happening on the highways and the rail lines.
Dan Seaman is a senior environmental policy specialist with the National Wildlife Federation. His work focuses on floodplains and adaptation to climate change. He thinks that creating a new town could break the cycle of flooding and rebuilding that keeps playing out in Skagit County.
Hamilton is really a poster child for getting people out of the floodway, really moving people out of harm's way, both from the point of view of public safety, of water quality, and of salmon habitat. There are, in fact, between Sedro-Woolley and Concrete, about 400 properties in the floodway, and about 75% of Hamilton is in the floodway. Hamilton has flooded out, I think, 17 times in the last 100 years or so. And that has cost exorbitant amounts of money, and that money is borne by, in large part, taxpayers. Some of that money is through the National Flood Insurance Program, and Skagit County has sort of received, I think, 4 times more money in payouts to the National Flood Insurance Program than they've actually put in. But Hamilton has received 60 times more than they've put in. We, the taxpayers, are actually paying for people to live a very bucolic life in Hamilton.
Clearly documented over 10 million, probably closer to 20 according to Mark Carey.
Right.
Yeah.
For repetitive payouts.
Repetitive payouts for flood losses. Most of the people that elevated did so with their own flood insurance. So it's, but a whole bunch of money comes your way when you flood.
Karen and Brian Vale know that the future of Hamilton is somewhere else on higher ground, but leaving could be as tough as staying.
We just thought it was an inexpensive house, and it was because it was out in the middle of nowhere. I don't think we'd even made one payment before it flooded. I think 2003 was the one that Brian stayed in the house during the flooding, and it got to about 5 or 6 feet. He was pretty much trapped here for 2 days, 3 days. The house that was originally here was a cinder block house, and it was destroyed in consecutive floods in 1995. The foundation was undermined so badly that the walls were falling out, and it was not fixable.
This town had originally where it was at down by the river, it burnt down once, and then they put it back, and then they decided, well, we might flood there. So then they moved it to here and built one here, and then it burnt down.
The river used to be probably, I'll say, a good half mile to the south.
What's interesting about rivers, we often think of rivers as their banks being relatively static, but that's not the case. And especially in the Skagit, rivers can meander quite a bit.
You know, if he's hauling a long ways away and the flood's coming fast, and it's like, you know, I can't take care of everything by myself, and he can't always just drop everything and come home.
They put the dam in 51, and we never had a flood until 74. But now it's so filled up with gravel that there's no place for the water to go. The first time we only had about 2 inches in the store. That would have been in 74. 85, we had another one, and we got about maybe 11 inches. Then in 89, we had another one. We had about the same. The 1st of January in 90, they had another one. We had one in 95, which we probably had, 18, 20 inches maybe. 2003 put 43 inches of water on us.
In Puget Sound generally, we've had 13 major floods in the last 20 years. And those floods are likely to become more and more extreme over time because of climate change. Climate change is going to make that worse. And for everybody's sake, for the people in Hamilton, for the taxpayers, for the fish and wildlife, it doesn't make any sense to stay there.
They always put all the blame on Hamilton, because one time I got in an argument with the Corps of Engineers, and I said, you know, what's your problem? Well, he said, we want you out of here because it's the best place to study the river from.
I'm not going, and most everybody else in town's told the same thing. We're not leaving. We live here. If it was flooding every year, I'd had a house up higher. It's the best farm ground in the valley, and a farmer will pick that up in a hurry. But I know we've had corn and strawberries and raspberries and all of that, and it's been a good life for us.
A lot of reports suggest that some of them are living off of the FEMA payouts, created a kind of flood welfare state there, or welfare city there for some folks.
It's flooded, more than 50% damage. FEMA comes in and buys you out, and then they tear the house down. The last time I got flooded here, it cost me $2,500 to fix that house. And they sent me a check for $25,000. So why would I ever leave town?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's pretty quiet. You know, it's quiet and peaceful, and
Nobody messes with you?
yeah, you don't. During the summer, it's really nice because there's enough stuff blocking the view. It feels like you're down here by yourself.
It's become much more affordable to live there, and you know, a number of people are getting a lot of money because of the flooding. And you hear stories of when the floods are coming, they move their cars down to the river to get flooded out so they can get a new car.
They offered us a SBA loan to rebuild, and we found out after that we had already started the process that we could have used that money to relocate, and we really wish we would have known that at that point, but none of the FEMA people told us that that was possible to use that loan to relocate. And so if I had to go back in time, that's what I would have done, was relocate.
Why don't we have an agreed upon flood plan? Why are we not focusing on these huge potential restoration opportunities, and not just in Hamilton, but down here in the Delta as well? The federal government has got everything chopped up so that they want to help you, but they can't because of their regulations, but they don't ever get around to changing anything. I mean, if they had managed the buyout process to where FEMA could have been involved and the state could have been involved in purchasing the relocation site and buying new land for people instead of, but they can't ever change anything. It's not their fault. It's never anybody's fault, you know, because, gee, that's a federal law.
If FEMA were to turn off the spigot and stop providing the rebuilding money, then the incentive to stay would probably change. The economics of living there would change significantly.
We also have to have FEMA behind us saying, no, you can't live here anymore.
But on top of that, we need to bring together all the parties that can make it happen, that can bring the money, the local leadership, the county leadership, the state leadership, and the federal leadership together to get the money, because money can be found.
There's no leadership to bringing these people together. That's pretty damn clear.
Get the commitment of the populations to help them find a place that is viable to move to.
You get the site, get the funding, you know, then all the different programs can be put in place.
But also getting people out of harm's way and restoring the habitat values for fish and wildlife in the river, so that when the next flood does occur, it doesn't actually kill the town of Hamilton, and that downstream areas won't be harmed by what comes through or comes out of Hamilton if it were to stay there.
With so many eyes on Hamilton, the questions are, why has the 30-year effort to move the town failed? And can the political will be reignited to get Hamilton out of the way before the next flood? And just how big will the next one be?